Welcome back to Judeacation here on JNS TV. My name is Josh Hasten, correspondent for JNS News. We are here in the JNS Media Hub in Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Of course, this show focuses on the realities of life in Judea and Samaria. Included in that is the city of Jerusalem. A lot of the world, unfortunately, does not recognize Israel's legitimate rights to the entire city of Jerusalem. The perfect person to discuss that here on today's show is Jeff Daube. He's been an advocate for the state of Israel for over 30 years, an advocate for Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem. He is currently the Israel chair of the International Committee for Har HaZeitim. Har HaZeitim, that is the Mount of Olives, the oldest Jewish cemetery in the world. Jeff, it's an honor to have you on the show today.
First of all, Josh, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start by asking, why is Har HaZeitim, the Mount of Olives, why is it so important? We're talking about an ancient Jewish cemetery still in use today. Why is it so relevant that we preserve that site?
It's extremely relevant from a number of different perspectives. Number one, you're all about Judea, Samaria, right? So Har HaZeitim sits on a very, very strategic ridge. It is called the Mount of Olives Reches, or Ridge, and it extends for 2 miles. Whoever controls that ridge controls not only Eastern Jerusalem, and I say Eastern Jerusalem, not East Jerusalem with a capital E, but Eastern Jerusalem with a lowercase e. And not only that, but also the control of the Adumim block. Gush Adumim is very much dependent on who controls that ridge. So if we control the ridge, Ma'ale Adumim, Mishar Adumim, Kfar Adumim, Yakir, all of those lovely, lovely communities just to the east will be protected. If our good neighbors gain control of that ridge, which is what they have been trying to do, then not only will Eastern Jerusalem and all of the Jewish residents in it be threatened, but also the Adumim block will be threatened. I can get into the historical significance. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, no, let's get right to it. Historical significance, that's from a security perspective. From historical significance, the oldest Jewish cemetery in the world, why is it so important that people understand the realities of the site, and why is it so important that it is preserved? I mean, our neighbors have been desecrating the site for many, many years. Talk about that.
Okay. So first of all, you were absolutely correct. It is the oldest Jewish cemetery. I'm not talking about burial site, because when we talk about burial sites, we would have to talk about the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, the Cave of the Patriarchs, which does precede the Mount of Olives. But in terms of cemeteries, it is 3,000 years old. The first known, the first person that we know of that was buried there was Bat Paro. I'm not talking about the daughter of Pharaoh that fished Moses out of the Nile. I'm talking about the Bat Paro that married Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. So it dates back to, and we know the approximate areas to where she's buried. There were also 3 prophets buried there: Zechariah, Malachi, and Haggai. There is a prophetess, Huldah, that is buried there as well. And I can go through, I mean, we would need a number of podcasts here in order for me to go through the pantheon of Jewish and Zionist leadership, just to name a few. We're talking about the Or HaZeitim. We're talking about Rav Kook. We're talking about Menachem Begin. We're talking about Eliezer ben Yehuda, the lexicographer of modern Hebrew. So you have a prime minister, you have chief rabbis, you have, you name it. It is the site of where the Kohen Gadol, the priest, prepared himself, and we know exactly where it is, and I can take you there for his, with his ritual bathing. There was a mikvah, and the para aduma, the red heifer, and we can see directly across to where the altar was, where the mizbeach was. Again, we can go through so many, and I'm not talking only here about the A-list. I mentioned some of the A-listers just now, but there are B-listers and C-listers there that have remarkable stories and contributed to Jewish history. So again, we can go on and on and on.
So talk about the A-listers you mentioned, but the significance. This is a to looking at it from the outside, you would say, okay, these people came, made their mark, they're no longer with us. But why is it so important historically to maintain a Jewish presence in the area, a strong Jewish presence on that mountain?
First of all, I should tell you that I am an educator. Before I made Aliyah in 2007, for 32 years, I was a special educator in the States. So for me, it's all about education, education, and education, those three things. And we're building a visitor center right now. What is the significance? Why are all of these historical figures still important to us? Because if we don't learn from our history, we are doomed to repeat our mistakes. And granted, as great as many of those luminaries and sages and leaders were, we can take a look at some of the flaws as well, learn from them, so we don't repeat some of the mistakes that we have made throughout Jewish history. So it's very, very, very important that we bring young people up there, we bring soldiers up there, we bring tourists up there, we bring everybody up there in order to learn from the history on Har HaZeitim.
Now, some people are actually, sadly, afraid to visit the Mount of Olives, Har HaZeitim, because of the security realities, because of the unfriendly neighborhoods in Jerusalem, in eastern Jerusalem. I won't say East Jerusalem because that doesn't exist, but the eastern side of the city. I mean, what can be done to make people comfortable? And, I have friends who have their parents buried up there, and I'm not talking about prime ministers. I'm just talking about friends whose families decided that they wanted their loved ones to be buried on Har HaZeitim. And yet some of them are even afraid to go and pay their respects to their own parents and whatnot because of that security situation. I mean, what can you say about the reality?
That's a very good question. So I always say, because I was involved in special education for 32 years, and I worked with a population that we call here Nora Basikun, our Nora Basikun, our children at risk here are like milk-fed puppies compared to the inner city New York population that I dealt with. It's extremely difficult to unlearn behaviors. So here it is very, very difficult to change perceptions. When we got started in 2010, we got started right after Michael Linden Strauss, Zichrono Livracha, he was the state controller of Israel, came up with a report that it was a scathing report that talked about everything that you just talked about, the vandalism, the rock throwing, the fact that Har HaZeitim and the cemetery was being used as the #1 drug shooting gallery for the Arab youth in the area. There were some donkey races, dead donkeys that were found in the cemetery. Graves were being desecrated left and right all over the place. And the perception that people had back in 2010 was absolutely correct. It was a dangerous place to go. But thank God, we have been able to, if not 180 degrees, at least 170 degrees, reverse that. With the cooperation of the government, with the cooperation of the police, we have managed to turn it around. 230 plus cameras that are monitored 24/7 in a security headquarters below ground. We have additional fencing there. The government has been very, very cooperative. Lighting in many of the sections now. So what we have done, and our primary purpose, our raison d'etre, if you will, was to provide for security on the Mount of Olives. And the reality has changed significantly. Not a single significant vandalism of a grave since October 2018. Incredible. If you had seen what went on prior to 2018, you wouldn't have believed how much it has shifted. We have to convince the public. The public simply doesn't know.
It's great to know that things are improving there. I just want to go back in terms of the history of the site itself. Between 1949, 1967, correct me if I'm wrong, the Mount of Olives was under Jordanian control. How did that area look when Jordan controlled it? We know how they desecrated synagogues in the old city of Jerusalem. Was that the case on the Mount of Olives as well?
It was that was the case on the Mount of Olives by orders of magnitude. We had roughly 40,000 graves that were destroyed and desecrated by the Jordanians. What they did, and I can show you photos, the before and after photos, before 1948, And then between 1948 and 1967, when they were in control, they destroyed roughly 40,000 kvarim, graves. Why? Because they used the matzevot, the headstones, and the platot, which are horizontal coverings, stone coverings for the graves on Har HaZeitim, for paving stones leading to a Jordanian army base, and for, believe it or not, latrines. So when we got there, I befriended an elderly Arab. His name was Abed. If he was a day under 160 years old, Josh, I would be shocked. Now, Abed was part of a grave digging family on the Mount of Olives going back decades into the early 20th century. So that when the Jewish community, the Yishuv, needed somebody buried there, they would contact Abed's family and he would bury them. And so when we recaptured and liberated Har HaZeitim in 1967. And we started taking those headstones from those latrines and paving stones and putting them back where we thought. Abed had a photographic memory, and he would say, no, 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 no. That headstone belongs here on this grave. That belongs there on that grave. He had stories, just stories galore that he would share with me. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago. I haven't even been able to take his cell number out. But the Jordanians desecrate. We have rehabilitated 20,000 out of the 40,000. But of the 150,000, think about this for a second, of the 150,000 Jews that are buried on Har HaZeitim, 40,000 graves were destroyed.
Wow.
So it was a significant, it, as far as I'm concerned, really is up there with the 50 plus synagogues that were destroyed in the old city. It was just it was a nightmare.
So let's fast forward back to today. And you mentioned earlier you are putting together, building, constructing this visitor education center on the Mount of Olives. Talk about that project. When is it going to be ready, and what can we expect is going to be held in that visitor center?
Sure. So our chairs, Menachem and Abe Lubinsky in the United States, quickly realized that one of the ways that you gain control and provide security for any area is by bringing people to that location. I'll give you an example. I'm a New Yorker originally. I still love New York City. So New York was in terrible, desperate straits back in the 1970s, let's say under the Dinkins administration. Crime was rampant. If you went into Central Park at night, you went in there because you wanted to get murdered, raped, or mugged. And so Mayor Giuliani did something brilliant. He was all about cleaning up the city. He went into Central Park. He brought in the Israel Philharmonic. He brought in the Israel Philharmonic, the New York Philharmonic, and the Metropolitan Opera in the park, the Delacorte Theater Shakespeare in the park, New York Public Film Library, festivals, you name it, it was going on in Central Park. It brought thousands of people there. And what we did on Har HaZeitim, thanks to then Minister of Culture and Sport Miri Regev, was we set up concerts there, like Yasser Rosenblatt, the famous cantor, is buried there on his yahrzeit. We had concerts, chazanot concerts, cantorial concerts there. And all of a sudden, you had now, whereas before 200 people daily visiting, now you had 2,000 people visiting the mountain. It's what I call Giulianiizing, but I spell it Jew at the beginning, Giulianiizing the Mount of Olives. That was how we did it.
I hear what you're saying. I actually lived in New York City under Giuliani, and it was very, very safe when I lived there back in the late 90s after he cleaned up the city. So I see you're on the right track there. But
Well, just to finish the thought,
Sure.
the visitor center is really all about that, because we're expecting that giving people a focus now. And by the way, the visitor center, 10% of it will also contain a permanent police station. We have something called the Nekudat HaMishtara. That is a police substation up on top. That's basically 2 trailers that were pushed together, and we have police there, and they patrol regularly. But this is going to contain a permanent police station with indoor parking spots for 2 patrol cars. So we'll have a permanent presence there, plus all the thousands of people that are going to come there to learn about everybody that's buried on Har HaZeitim. It is really going to provide for the security of not only the cemetery itself, but also the Jewish communities around. We have substantial Jewish communities around there.
I don't know if you can answer this question, but is there one specific grave of one of those people perhaps you mentioned earlier? Is there one specific grave that it is known that more people visited? I don't know if there's any way to measure it, but maybe you have that information.
Oh, we have that information.
Okay.
And I can tell you by far and away, it is the Har HaZeitim.
And who is that?
The Har HaZeitim was an incredible sage dating back to the 15th century. He's actually buried closer to the older the grave, the more likely it is that you're going to find it closer to the valley that separates the Mount of Olives from the Temple Mount. So it doesn't matter that he was Sephardi and that he came from Morocco originally. His grave is visited by everybody, by mitnagdim, in other words, the yeshivish community. It is visited by Hasidim, of course, by Sephardim. It doesn't matter. The Har HaZeitim speaks to everybody.
And it is believed, I guess, at the end of days, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Mount of Olives, that will be the first site, I guess, in all of Judaism where the dead will rise, perhaps? Talk a little bit about that.
Yes. In Jewish eschatology, end of days, let's say prognostications, the Mount of Olives is going to be a place, according to Zechariah HaNavi, according to Zechariah the prophet, where the mountain will split and where the righteous will rise. Unfortunately, the unrighteous will not. And yes, that is, I suffer from a condition called FOMO. It's a fear of missing out. I have to be everywhere at the same time, attend every single event. If you want to be where it's at, when it occurs, whenever Mashiach, whenever the Messiah comes, that is the place to be, okay? Because that's where it's all going to happen.
I want to move away from the Mount of Olives just for a second, if we can. Talk about some of your other advocacy work in general, in Judea, in Samaria, and in Jerusalem, especially after the October 7th reality, which we're all living in right now. Tell us what else you're involved in.
Okay, so I've been involved in a number of things and continue to be involved in it. One of the let's say, initiatives that I was very, very involved in and continue to be involved in is advocacy for Americans and American Israelis. In other words, dual citizens who have been impacted by terror. So I go over to the States twice a year, and unfortunately in Judea and Samaria, where we have a lot of expat Americans living, Americans have been impacted disproportionately in those areas. Do you remember, Josh, when back in 2010, I believe it was, you would call me on a regular basis because I was attending the Asher Palmer, Michael Palmer trial in Machane Ofer at the military courts there.
Yeah.
Why? Because an American and his 1-year-old son, Yonatan, in the back of the car, leaving Kiryat Arba to go visit Jerusalem. Here we're talking about Judea, Samaria, and Jerusalem, to go visit. His wife, luckily, was already by her parents in Kiryat Moshe in Jerusalem. And an Arab taxi passed by. They crossed each other. They threw a boulder out. It went through the windshield, hit Asher in the head, lost consciousness. The car rolled down the ridge there, and he was killed along with his 1-year-old son. And we advocated for them. We've advocated for any number of other individuals who have been impacted by terrorism. That's just one example. There are other things, like we dropped a bill, a Hatzat Chok, in the Knesset. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. That would have required, just like any other area of Israel, that would hopefully never be ceded to any of our neighbors. If it is, there's the law on the books that it has to go to a referendum. It has to go to a popular vote. And so the bill that we submitted, because Jewish residents of Judea and Samaria should be treated equally. So we submitted a bill that would have called upon the government, should they cede any area, again, chas v'shalom, God forbid, I hope that never happens, then it would be required to go to a vote.
Unfortunately, you said that didn't come to be.
One thing I've learned, though, what the Arabs call sumud, and this was the case in this journey, this odyssey on the Mount of Olives, sumud is a combination of patience, resolve, resilience, and that's what you need. If you're going to lobby on Capitol Hill or in the Knesset, anywhere for that matter, or for a visitor center on Har HaZeitim, you need enormous patience. And so I haven't given up on that. It will come around again, and hopefully we'll be able to get something like that passed the next time around.
Yeah, I hope that happens. I want to ask, I guess, one political question right now. In the reality right now, Israel is in a war on 7 different fronts. We have soldiers in Gaza, Syria, Lebanon. We're fighting all these different battles, Judea and Samaria, of course. How are we doing? How are we doing right now? Are you optimistic things are heading in the right direction? Israel just entered a new phase in the war in Gaza. Unfortunately, we still have hostages who are being held by Hamas in the dungeons of Gaza. Lebanon, Syria, everything going on right now. How do you feel? How are we doing?
I'm enormously optimistic, and I'll tell you why. There are any number of reasons, but there's one major reason. Take a look at our young people, Josh. They're absolutely incredible. One of the other things that I'm very, very involved in, I have 2 passions, a number of sub-passions, but 2 major passions. One is the Mount of Olives, Har HaZeitim. The other one is the Michael Levin Lone Soldier Center. And I take a look at the soldiers that I encounter on a weekly basis. We bring them Shabbat meals on Friday afternoon. They are absolutely incredible. Now, there's one thing a lot of people don't realize. When they think lone soldier, they think somebody from Los Angeles, somebody from Paris. 50% of our lone soldiers here are native Israelis. Again, kids who come from broken homes, again, Noah Basikun, or Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, that decide that they are going to enlist despite the zeitgeist of their community, and they are then summarily excommunicated, put into Coventry by their families and by their communities. So we have to provide them with support and service. And you see, these young people, they are absolutely incredible, and they give me hope, and they are the major reason why I am very, very optimistic about our future.
Certainly inspiring. Jeff, before we let you go, when is the visitor center on the Mount of Olives on Har HaZeitim going to open? When can we expect it to open? And just final information about the visitor center.
We're making unbelievable progress, and in fact, we're almost going too fast because we have to get funds into the government based on certain benchmarks. We can expect it to be opened at the beginning of 2027.
2027.
Yes.
The Har HaZeitim Mount of Olives Visitor Center. Find Jeff Daube online. Check it out. Follow all of his important work. And the site there for the visitor
So
center?
we have two sites. One, an American site that's Har HaZeitim, HarHazeisIm.org. Our site here in Israel is harhazeitim.com.
So check those out and keep abreast of all the latest developments from the Mount of Olives. And you're doing a tremendous amount of work protecting our ancestors, because without them, as you said, we have no future. We have to know where we came from.
I always say, Josh, that I have always advocated for those who can't advocate for themselves. We have 150,000 Jews residing on the Mount of Olives. They can't exactly get up and go to the Knesset and advocate for themselves. So we have to advocate for them.
Thank you for all your important work, and thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
I want to thank our production team behind the scenes here on Judeacation: Ryan Lifshitz, Zach Sickerman, Esther Eden, and Yuri Svertsky. And make sure you go to JNS TV for the amazing content offered there by JNS, and also go to jns.org for all the latest breaking news from Israel, the Middle East, and the entire Jewish world. And we will see you on Judeacation next week. Have a great week, everybody.